Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another chapter of Experiencer Interviews. And today we've got another amazing story, but this time from across the pond. We have Fay Vale on board today. Fay Vale was born in Leicester, England, and grew up there. She got married at 19 and had 2 children by the time she was 22. One evening, she had a UFO experience that was quickly forgotten, like it never happened. After that, she suddenly became aware of spirit people that would just appear in front of her. She thought they looked so real until they suddenly disappeared. This became a normal thing for her after her experience. Also, she would be aware of perfume or tobacco smells or just energies in an empty room. This became so normal to her that she started a paranormal group and would investigate haunted places. She notes that before her experience, she had never ever been interested in the paranormal or UFOs. After a few years later, she had another encounter as she witnessed 5 UFOs and the formation of a 5-on domino black. They suddenly began darting all over the sky at tremendous speeds and ridiculous turns. After this, in 2007, she had a profound close encounter, and after a couple of weeks, her art began. Since then, she has over 3,000 drawings and writings come through. She draws daily and never knows what may come next. After 12 years of channeling ET art, she has now launched her first book on Amazon entitled ET as Artist. This book tells of her journey to becoming a channel for the ETs to communicate and also bring to life their amazing art and messages. So Faye, thank you so much for coming on.
Hi, thank you for having me on. Nice to meet.
Thank you. So when did your experiences start, Faye?
Well, it would have been in my early 20s when I first saw a UFO. But saying that, a while ago, I recalled when I was about 9 years old, and I'd gone on holiday with my mum and dad. And we used to rent like a trailer, or caravan, as we say over here. And I remember in them days, you didn't have all the mod cons in your trailer. And there used to be a toilet and a washroom on the site that you went to. And I remember when I was that age, going to the toilet and to use that and get a wash in that. And it was light when I went in, but when I came out, it was pitch black. So how long I was in there, I don't know, but this has only recently been recalled. So it must have been before that it's actually happened. But I remember coming out of the washroom, because on my way in, I'd counted the caravans and made note of which number caravan we were on the way back, because it was pitch black. I walked around for hours before I found the caravan again, or the trailer again, and never thought no more about it. But why it was light when I went in and dark when I came out, I don't know. So really, I say my first encounter was in my early 20s, but this has only just been recalled about the caravan or trailer park thing. So going back, there must have been stuff before then. But of course, that age, as a lot of people know, as a child, you tend to think, oh, well, it's just one of them things. You don't connect the two. But then I go on to my early 20s. And at that time, we lived in Leicester. I was brought up in Leicester. I was one of 4 children. So I think that's why I got married early, in a bit of a way, because 4 kids in one house. So mind you, I was in love, so I can't say that. But anyway, I got married and we still lived in Leicester. We lived in a little rented house, but facing the house was a golf course. So, if you looked out in the evening, it would be pitch black, because all it was land in front of you. Well, this particular night, we'd had friends round and they left about just after 11 at night. And my husband went to bed because he'd got to go to work in the morning. So I stayed up to clear up and wash the pots, the cutlery and stuff. He went to bed, and at the time we had a milkman who used to come and collect an empty bottle, and then he'd replenish the milk in the morning. So if you had an empty bottle, you washed it out and put it on your doorstep, which is the last thing I did before I went to bed. So I opened the door to put the bottle on the doorstep, and I heard this humming noise, and it was just basically, which made me look up. When I looked up, there was, it just sat above the houses, and it was a massive, bright orange cigar shape. But as it hummed, it pulsated the light bright and darker, so it was like a pulse. Well, I just ran in and slammed the door because, as anybody knows, when you first see a UFO, it scares the hell out of you. So I went back in home, stood in the room for a bit, and I could still hear the humming noise. So I got up the courage to go to the door again. Went to the door again, and it was still there, and it just sat there. So in the end, I just shut the door and went to bed. The next morning, I never even thought about it. Nothing. Now, you would think that, you know, if you see something like that, you'd be up in the morning and you'd be going, guess what? Guess what? Guess what happened last night? Nothing. It's like it was completely gone. But then after that, I would see spirit people, what I call spirit people, because I think it's nicer than saying ghosts. But I would see spirit people in the street just on a normal day. And it was only when I'd get near them that they'd disappear. And also, like the paranormal stuff, I could go in a room and feel a presence, or you can smell somebody perfume has passed away, or that maybe they won't smoke cigars. You're just very aware of the spirit world. And this was so strong that I just need to point out, before this, I had 2 children. My husband died at the age of 24 with cancer, and I nursed him at home. So I had 2 children, nursing a husband who was terminally ill. So I never had time for any of this. But anyway, going on with the story, the paranormal stuff became everyday normal to me. I could go shopping, and I remember one day I went shopping, and I'd moved to Lincolnshire then. And I went shopping, and on the way back, there used to be like a little old railway bridge. And you could dive under there, and you got home quicker. It was like a shortcut. But I never went under the railway bridge without looking to see if anybody was there first, because I was always aware that, you know, you could get your purse snatched or something, because it was black under the bridge. So this particular day, and this is at lunchtime, I'm walking home, and there's this man under the bridge. He was quite tall. He had a long black coat on, and he had, like, you know, the really big wide leg trousers. What made me look at him and notice him, he walked like a penguin. So he walked like that with his feet out. So I stood at the beginning of the bridge waiting for him to come out, and he never came out. So I looked again, and he'd completely disappeared, and he could only go back where he came from, nothing. I'm telling this story because it's got a bit of a twist. In the evening, a friend of mine who lived in Lincolnshire rang me up, And I said to her, I had a really strange experience today. And I said, this guy was coming out of from under the railway bridge and he completely disappeared. So I described what he looked like to her. And I said, the funny thing he walked really oddly, like a penguin. She said, that's Pete the Feet. I said, who? She said, he died years before, but the locals called him Pete the Feet for the way he walked. Well, I didn't know any of that. And I said, well, what would he be doing down there? And apparently this Pete, he lived with his brother and his mum, but he wasn't mentally, normal. So when his mum died, her dying wish was that the brother looked after him, but the brother didn't. So apparently this Pete used to walk the streets and people would fetch him in and give him food and that. So where I saw him that day, he was just doing what he did years ago when he was here. But I'm telling this story to let people know how real it is, how very real it is when it happens to you. So moving on from that, I got a paranormal group up and we did loads of hauntings and things, because it didn't scare me anymore. People used to say, how can you go in a haunted house? But it wasn't scary because it became normal. It was an everyday occurrence in spirit people or things like that. So then we moved on to the 5 UFOs. My boys were a lot older then, and they were going night fishing. Can you get us up at 2 a.m, Mum? As mums do. So I set my alarm, and because the boys were going fishing, the first thing I did was look out the window, see if it was raining. As I looked out the window, there was 5. There was 4 like a square and then 1 in the middle, just like dominoes. And then all of a sudden they started just darting around all over the place, but the maneuvers and the speed was phenomenal. And that was the second time I saw it. Then we moved on to 207. And because I had a paranormal group, lots of local paranormal investigators would meet once a month and we'd take our audio in or videos in where we caught stuff on camera. And it'd be like a night where we all shared and we sort of talked about it. So we'd hired this place to go and do this, but the place was haunted, which was the reason we went to it. But I was talking to the lady, and we didn't leave till 12 o'clock in the evening. I'd gone with my friend, she was driving, because the lady was telling us about the spirit that haunted the place. So my friend and I got in the car. We're driving back to Boston in Lincolnshire, where I moved to. And on the way there, it's like country roads, and they're very narrow and the pitch black. You've not got the normal street lights. So we're driving along, and all of a sudden this big white owl flew straight across the windscreen, and it flew that close that it made me jump. And I said and it settled in the tree at the side of me. And I said to my friend who was driving, I said, that I've never seen a white owl before. She said, no, they're quite unusual around here. So we're driving along, and coming towards us is a light on the road. But when you've got your lights on full beam and you're a little way away, sometimes it can look like one light. As we're driving along, this light's coming at tremendous speed. But as it gets nearer, it began to fill the whole of the road, and it just got bigger and bigger. And if that's our car, it got that close, and we thought it was going to hit us. She slammed a foot on the brake, and we came to a jolt, and it went backwards and gone in seconds. And we just sat there, and I said, what was that? She said, I don't know. But the thing was, I got my art, the art came through, but she didn't, nothing happened to her. And I remember after, and I asked the ETs why nothing happened to her, and they said that she was frozen in time. But 2 weeks after that, I was up at 3 o'clock in the morning looking for pencil and paper to draw. Never done it before, but it was so impulsive. It's like, the only way I can say you got a cake in the oven, you're cooking a cake, and then all of a sudden you think, oh, need to go and get the cake. And it was just like that. And it was like, no, you need to do this. And it's so, it just won't leave you alone. You've got to go and do it. So I'm up at 3 o'clock in the morning, drawing like mad, left-handed, and I'm a right-handed person. Yeah. And it was just scribble like a 3-year-old's. That went on for about 6 weeks. And then one day I drew a fish, the nearest thing I'd ever drawn, because it was just scribble. And after that, it just took off. And I draw mostly with my right hand now, but all my first ones, and I'll explain why, because I do workshops now and get people to draw with the less dominant hand, because it was so clever what they did. Because if you draw with your dominant hand, if I say I drew a house and I did a bit wrong, say I put something in the wrong place, I would automatically scribble it out and put it right. If you do it with your less dominant hand, that brain control doesn't kick in. Because the big lesson was, and I did it sometimes, was to begin to add bits yourself after I got used to doing it left-handed. And as soon as I did that, my pencil or pen would scribble it out. But it wasn't because my mind had stepped in, because I was doing it with the opposite hand, which I didn't have that control with. So it was very clever how they did it. But if you look at it like that, the side you use is mind control. The other side is a clear channel. So it was very clever.
Yeah. Well, that's interesting, because those that are left-handed tend to be more artistic, because it's the right brain that gets more active. Those that are more scientific tend to be left-brained or right-handed. So I find that interesting that they might have sort of balanced out maybe both hemispheres of the brain. Yeah.
It's clever, isn't it? And something even more clever was when I first started drawing, I was drawing warships. I was drawing tanks. I was drawing graveyards where soldiers were buried. I had drawings of 2 guys who was on a Russian submarine that sank. Well, I've never been interested in war things, but I was drawing airfields, battleships. But it was very clever again, because they were drawing all them sort of things that I would normally see if I researched them. But then one day I drew a rocket on a rocket launcher. So what they did is led me all through the technology of that onto today's like rockets. The next thing I was drawing was ships. Then I got drawings of all different ships. I got maps. I even got plans for an airflow system, which I didn't understand at all.
Can you tell me if you were taken with when you're during the event where the UFO came to you and you were with your friend?
I never thought I was, but I did have a regression, and the owl morphed into a being and took me on board the ship. I can tell you exactly what it looked like on board, but I can't tell you what the beings were because I never saw them. But you know, when you're, because you've had experiences as well, when they're around you, you don't always see them, but you know they're there because the energy's there. It's a bit like if you're standing in a queue somewhere waiting to be served in a shop or something. If somebody stands really close behind you, you don't necessarily see them, but you know they're there. So that's how they were on the ship.
That reminds me of when I told you beforehand, when I saw them as a kid.
Yeah.
I told you that I remember telling my mom that they were there in my bedroom, but I don't remember seeing them. But, you know, the fear was so there that I had to sleep against the wall most of my childhood. So that reminds me of that. How big was the owl?
It was quite a big one. You know, more like well, not as big as an eagle, but that sort of bigger size.
Okay.
And of course, it was pure white. I'd never seen one of those before.
See, I remember my first nightmare as a kid, which is strange because that happened when I was maybe like 3 or ish, 4, but that maybe. Thing is, I woke up in that dream and the energy was really weird, not druggy weird, but really weird. And I'm in my bed and I look at the bottom part of the bed where my feet are, and on my feet, let's say, or that area, was a 3-foot tall boxing glove doing this. Now they tend to, appear to you in certain things as that don't make you afraid. So I'm wondering if that was a screen image, just to put me off.
Yeah. I remember waking up one night and there was I woke up because there was something pulling my toe. And I woke up and it was a little grey, and he was like,
really?
Yeah, I had greys in the bedroom, little robots that used to come with the greys. And
what year was this?
Sorry?
What year was this?
This was after my art began. So it'd be around 2007, 2008. But I had them in my room for about 3 years. They used to scare the hell out of me. But I also had robed beings. They wear like a monk's robe, but you don't see the face because it's always black. I don't know whether you've experienced those, but
not the robed ones, no.
I have spoke to other people who said they've seen them as well. But when the little greys and the little robots used to come, then there'd be a big, tall white being, tall and slim, but he'd be about 7 foot. But he just used to stand at the bottom of the bed, and they'd be doing all sorts of things. And then the being would just say in my head, "We're just collecting data." And I had all sorts of objects in the bedroom. They'd be floating around, different things. I remember one time I had this thing on my wrist and it had all red lights on and it was flashing. It just loads of stuff. And I think I sent you some pictures of some of the marks I've got up.
Yes. What happened with those? What happened?
Just went to bed and they're there in the morning. But then I look at it, it used to scare me, but it's gone on that many years now that I just think they're only doing the same as what they do to animals on Earth when they want to know how they live and their habits and the environment and that. So it doesn't bother me anymore because I think, they're only doing the same as what we do and they're curious.
Yeah. Some of them do look like bruises that they might have done to you. Some of them look like skin samples as well.
Oh, yeah, that some of them with the little dots on. Because I do UFO talks now, lots of people have had the same things. And once I woke up and I had a triangle mark on my shoulder, and a lot of people have woke up with those. I had a an implant in my wrist as well, which is gone now because I asked them to take it.
Did you feel it? Some of them are physical, some are...
Yeah, just tiny. But if you went like that, you could feel it was hard. But whenever we went on holiday or vacation, as you call it, I would never get through the scan without it going off. And I'd purposely not wear jewellery, thinking it won't go off if I don't put any jewellery on, and it always went off. But they never found anything. That's why I asked. It became a joke, really. That's why I asked if they'd take it away.
Oh.
I bet they did.
Okay. So could you describe a bit what you saw in the craft, or that you recall?
Yeah, the craft was like saucer shape because it was round inside, but it was huge. All down one side, it was just like a big window. But through that window, you could see all the planets. But then where the planets were, there was actually, like when we look at the map and you see the roads, there was like places where they could go. So it was like a sat-nav, really, like we have now. It was massive. That was all down that side. And in front of me was two doorways. And they were arch-shaped like that, but they never had any doors on. And they obviously went to somewhere else. On the right-hand side in the ship was all gadgets and things going off and things like that. So it was like that side was technical side, should I say, or the advanced side. Yeah. And that's all I can remember. Apart from the floor, I remember the floor quite distinctly. The floor was a really dark grey, but it was all bumpy. Like if you put concrete down, I don't know whether you've ever done that, and it's sort of bumpy till you smooth it out. It was like that, but it had tiny little red lines all the way through it. So I must have been in a point where I was either laying on a table looking down or something, because I remember the floor quite distinctly.
Did you ever get a sense of how warm or cold was it in the craft?
It's heat, it's warm. Okay. When I do my drawings, some of the ETs who come in, it's like you sat up a fire and they come in with such heat. So I'll start drawing and then the heat comes in and I'll probably take my sweater off or something because it's really hot. Maybe you could do with that over there if it's that cold.
It is cold. Come over. But have you seen other beings other than the Greys on the craft?
No. The only ones I've physically seen are the Greys and the tall white being and the little When I got the robotics, I'm thinking I must have made that up. And knowing I didn't, but quite a few people have had the little robots, but the Greys come as like worker bees, really. And the robots are just there to help them. They do all the menial work. Sounds crazy, but
coming back to the paranormal stuff really quickly. Now you said that as soon as you saw the the entities, the spirit beings, that they went away. Have you ever had the chance to actually speak to one?
I do mediumship now, so like I can go in, but it's the same thing. It's like it comes back into your head, like when you connect with the ETs. The information will come in your head. But I have recorded things where you can hear people talking and that, but it's not actually you. It's like paranormal stuff.
Have you ever recorded good EVPs?
No, not really. I've had some, but
yeah, it's difficult.
Nothing outstanding. Years ago, I used to work in a shop and it was haunted upstairs, and I used to leave a camera running and we had loads of stuff moving on its own, and we picked up quite a few voices then.
That's
so that was pretty good. We had a CD player in one of the rooms, and it used to switch on and off on its own, and music could start blaring out, which I don't know whether you experienced this, but after the UFO stuff in my house where I lived, you get the TV would switch over on its own, and talking about power things, I remember being in the kitchen once, and my CD player came on full blast, volume right up. I wasn't even in that room. It wasn't plugged in even. I've had lights come on, and when they're not been plugged in, I've had glasses explode for no reason. Oh. It's like there's the energies there, you know. But,
I've had. I didn't have those. I had the opening and trash. My trash bin would open and close at night around midnight. And
all sorts of queer stuff.
No, that was the only thing. But I would get body taps at night to wake me up. Sometimes twice during the night. And one time I got after doing a C5. This was like on New Year's Eve of 2015. I'd do a C5 trying to bring in the craft. Nothing happens. But at 1:11 a.m. I get an electric shock to the head to wake me up. So I'm thinking somebody's in my room. I start kicking in the air.
Yeah.
I'm alone. My dad was out with his new girlfriend. I was taking care of the dog. So I'm in the basement in the middle of the woods alone. And I get an electric shock just behind the ear. The size of like a finger, let's say. And I wake up in the dark, turn around, look at the clock, and it's 1:11 after doing a C5.
So I'm not surprised. Not surprised.
So
most of my experiences are about 3 a.m, and a lot of the older people have said that because people think midnight's the dooming hour when stuff comes in, but it's usually 3 a.m.
Yeah, my current girlfriend, we the night prior to meeting her for the first time, she's an experiencer, and she sees a lot of grays upon waking up in front of her eyes, doing stuff like collecting data, like you said. And the same night just before that, we both probably got abducted because we had the same experience happen to us. And we heard both of our eyes were closed, but we heard outside of our head. Each time we would try to connect telepathically, we heard these high-pitched screeches, like non-human, very high-pitched. So we had the same experience. So, but other than that, it could be paranormal-ish. That was about it. Now, coming back to your story, so you started getting, you became more of an artist as time went on. So what happened after that? Did the channeling come into play normally, or did you? Yeah,
well, I got lots of strange writing, which I think you've seen, haven't you? I got strange writing, all different sorts of writing, and I couldn't understand what it meant. So they were connecting by writing, like dramatic writing, and I couldn't understand why what they were saying. So what I did was I thought, well, if they're sending it to me, it's got to be a two-way thing. I can speak to them. Because if you're in a channel, then it can go both ways. So this particular day when I got writing, I asked in my head, can you translate it into my own language? Because I don't know what you're saying. I'm thinking, well, they're sending me stuff, but what's the point if I don't know what it's about? So this took about 6 weeks. A couple of messages said that they were researching on it and they were trying to find programs where it would allow them to do this. And it went on for about 6 weeks. And I'd get messages, but the spelling was so atrocious that you couldn't understand what they were saying. It's really good now. Odd times we get funny spelling. But yeah, so now I do questions and answers, and while I'm drawing the being, I'll say, hello, who are you? Someone will speak to me. I've had ETs say, we're not allowed to tell you, or it's not relevant. And so, and then others just want to come in and converse with you. And you can ask them different things. They won't always tell you, some of them will. Some of them have names, others don't, because it's more of a human thing. They don't need a name. So that's quite interesting. And then I have the what I call guest drawers. The guest drawers are just pure consciousness that comes in and want to be seen in an image. So basically, this is just an energy that's nothing in the middle of nowhere, nothing. So sometimes they'll come, I'll get a drawing of an animal, maybe a strange animal, and then I'll get the writing with it. It's a bit like if you'd never seen yourself in a mirror, then you don't know what your image looks like. And this, because it's pure consciousness, it doesn't always have an image. So in order to come through, it produces an image. So I can see it like, but I can still talk to it because it's consciousness. So that's really interesting. And adding to that, I do get beings come through that are not good energy. It's the same as when you do paranormal stuff or you do hauntings, you have to check that, the good energies, because we do get good and bad, of course.
How do they come in? Do you actually hear a voice?
It's like the word, you'll get this because you must have it. It's like the words just come in your head, but it comes really quickly, like somebody's narrating it to you, but it's not an actual voice. It's when you think of something, a thought comes in quick like that, and it's the same thing, and it just comes in and comes in and comes in, and I'll just write it. And it's not till afterwards when I read it that I can, sort of fall in with what is being said. And I get a lot of big words that I don't even understand. And I have to look them up on the internet to see what they mean.
Well, that's funny. One time, this was again pre-awakening, I woke up with this word in my head prior to it would eventually turn out to be connected to my former fiance, and the word was serendipity, and I had no idea. I grew up in an English environment, though my parents were French, and went to English schooling all my life, and I never heard that word before. So I had to. At the time, Google wasn't really popular. I had to Yahoo it. So I had to Yahoo serendipity. And then it was actually a word. And it said meeting somebody in a special circumstance, blah, 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 which eventually I was able to connect with my fiance at the time. And so it's amazing how we wake up with these words that we don't know what it means, but it's actually a word that exists. The only telepathic I had that I think was telepathic was just before falling asleep around 2015, 14. Just when you're in that sort of theta wave, just before falling asleep, I heard an Asian man's voice in my head say, "Yawn to assist." And it was clearly in my head. It woke me up. Well, it brought me out of the falling asleep part. So that's probably what you're getting. Because some of us have never had these telepathic things happen to us, so it's hard to imagine how the process happens.
Well, the thing is, we're so what I call barcoded. Every little line is you're female, you're male. This is where you live. This is where you go to school. We're so barcoded from birth that we never look beyond that. But now. consciousness is taking us away from that and realizing there's so much more. And not everybody is there, of course, but those of us who are there, it's like, it's so exciting, and it's amazing. I don't know.
Have you had any trouble with the military? Because, the military is more prevalent in England. So I was wondering if something might have happened.
Not really. We do get lots of helicopters. But yeah. I have a friend in England, and she's part alien, part human, and she's had loads of military stuff. And another friend who I don't know whether you know of Rendlesham Forest in England. My friend was at Rendlesham Forest, and they've had lots of stuff there. Okay. And the military, mind you, it is next to a military unit, but they've had lots of stuff going on there, and military. And I have another friend whose life and family were threatened if he didn't stop talking.
Yeah.
There's a lot of that stuff. Fortunately, it's not happened to me, but there's a lot of that stuff goes on.
It is, yeah. I think you figured out one of the possible reasons why you've been abducted regarding your husband.
Well, I didn't know this till years after, but because my first husband died very young, his brother moved to Australia, so we lost contact. And then he got in touch, and we emailed probably once every 6 months or something. But anyway, when my book came out, I decided to send my book to him. And I said, I've published a book. I've sent you a copy. I'm not going to tell you what it's about. Just read it. And about 6 weeks after, I got an email, and he said, you're not the only one in the family who's had ET experiences. Well, this guy, my ex-brother, or my brother-in-law from my first marriage, he's never spoke about anything like that, or anything at all like that. So I said, how come? So he said, when my first husband, whose name was Tony, was alive, and he was over here when there were children, they were brought up on a farm. And he said, we would watch them land in the fields, he said, and they always came to us in our bedroom, he said, and he'd never told anybody. So I just think that because I married him and I had 2 children by him, then that's the connection from when he was with his brother and they had it. So it was already in the family. But I didn't find that out till years and years later. So I believe that's why.
I believe your brother, your husband's brother, that you talked about, they might have done something to them as a kid?
I don't know. He's never told me what happened, only that they used to see them land in the fields, and that they were visited lots of times. He said we used to call them the threes, because 3 used to land at the same time. I know, but he's never revealed it. He won't talk about it. He's never revealed it to me. That's all he's ever told me. But then, because I've got 2 children by his brother, the connection's there. But I never knew that.
Has anything happened to your children because of that?
Well, my daughter's very spiritual, but my 2 sons, no, they don't. The only hint I ever got was my eldest son, and he came to stay, and I was sorting the bedroom out, the spare bedroom out. So I was moving my art out of there into another room, and I said to him, have you ever seen my art? And he said no. And I showed it to him, and he said, put it away, I don't like it. But he's never ever said anything but that. I thought, no, this stuff happened to you, but he's never spoke about it. You know?
He got triggered. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh.
But also, we took him on holiday once when he was, he was about 3 then. And we went to this theme park, and they had like a massive machine where you put the money in and it's a clown and it laughs. I don't know whether you've seen them. Somebody went in and they put the money in, this clown started laughing and he went hysterical. He got out of his pushchair or his little pram thing. He ran. I had to chase him. He ran and he went behind this massive slot machine and he was crouched in the corner like that and I couldn't get him out. And he was terrified of this clown thing. But he was only later on, when you start doing research, that they do come as clowns. They do come looking like clowns. And another thing, when he was small, he would be in different places in the morning. I'd put him to bed and he'd come down in the morning, he'd probably be asleep behind the settee or the sofa. And then one morning I went in his bedroom and he wasn't there. I was thinking, where could he be? All the doors and the windows are locked. He's not got out anywhere. I searched the house. Could I find him? And he'd gone in the room where the boiler was, the little cupboard, and he pushed himself right behind the boiler. Well, that wasn't normal. But he's never spoke about anything. He'll just say, I don't like it.
Yeah, something came to him during the night.
Yeah.
Then
He always used to be hiding somewhere in the morning.
That reminds me of a friend of mine. She's like my second mother, really. And she told me once her son, well, she thinks her son is an experiencer too. He would, as a young child, he's about my age now, but as a young child, he would complain to his mom about all the damned clowns in the bedroom if they should leave.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a common
they
thing.
come in all sorts of forms, don't they? Clowns, owls, different things.
Deer in the middle of the road, huge deer, or I think I heard a shark once in the middle of the road, like really out of place. But coming back to your gift, it's not like a unique thing. A lot of people that do, when they do come back from abductions, some people start playing the piano all of a sudden. They know how to play.
Yeah, and there's some of them have, gifts and do all sorts of things.
Yeah.
And also there's the healings as well. I got my eyes healed. So
yeah, what happened with that?
Well, my mum had glaucoma, and it's an eye condition that is incurable, but it can pass down through generations. So when I used to have my eyes tested for new glasses, then they'd automatically do a glaucoma test. This particular time, I had the test and they said, we're 99% sure you've got it. So that started a hospital thing going. And the first time I visited the hospital, they said I had to have treatment or I could go blind in an instant, which really scared me. So I had laser treatment, all sorts of stuff. I was going to the hospital for 4.5 years. I used to have to put drops in my eyes 3 times a day. But anyway, my book was due to be published. And the friend who was helping me publish it kept saying, what are you going to call it? I said, I don't know. And this particular day, all day, E.T. as artist kept coming in my head. And in the end, I rang him up and I said, it's E.T. as artist. He said, that's perfect. But anyway, my book got published 2 weeks later, I had to go to hospital for my checkup. I used to have to go once a month. I got in the hospital and they did loads and loads of extra checks. And I thought something's wrong because I usually have the normal checks, go home. So at the end of the appointment, they said, you need to come in and see the consultant. And I'm thinking he's going to tell me something. I was really expecting bad news. And I sat in his office. And he said to me, do you want to know our findings then? So I said, yes, of course I do. He said, your glaucoma is completely gone and there's no damage whatsoever to your eyes. Well, glaucoma is incurable. And I just think, my husband was waiting outside the hospital for me and I came out and he said, how did you get on? I said, the ETs have cured it. He just looked at me like strange. But yeah. And since then, if ever I've met a doctor and they've said anything, they'll say, you need, well, one doctor said, oh, you need to be scientifically investigated because that's not possible. But it was. So, like, you know, you hear all these bad stories about ETs, but there is good stuff, lots of good stuff.
I'd like to share with everyone the channeling that you sent me regarding the lion being.
I've had lion beings quite often. They're really nice beings, really gentle, nurturing race, shall I say. Yeah.
So what happened to this particular one? Could you talk about the actual being? I think it's...
He just came in a drawing and he has cloak and everything. Lots of them wear cloaks, you know, lots of them wear robes. But then you get the other ones and they wear like suits. Some of them come without any clothes on. They're just like a figure. But yeah, he just came in and he just wanted to connect and speak. Sounds crazy, but he came in and I drew him and I just say, hello, who are you? And then the conversation will start. And very often at the end, they'll thank me and say, thank you for giving my energy and image.
Do you bring a message, please?
I am here in image only as you get accustomed to my presence.
Are you here to guide my work?
I am here because your vibration brought me to you.
Can we help each other to achieve?
We can certainly work towards that, if you are willing to converse.
Are you from the pure white light and are working towards love, communication, and understanding of many?
I am of the highest vibration and have an honorable background. I was always given this work as I am of the light. I fight for justice in everything I'll do. I am not of your world, but a celestial creation of very high energy, one that has overcome many past catastrophes on many lands.
I am pleased to work with you and very honored you have connected.
I am drawn to you because you trust, a gift that is not easily acquired.
What is about to happen next?
I am here to deal with your questions, but I cannot predict your future. Only you can create your future and what you would like it to be.
Do you have a name or is it just a human thing?
I am called Alltops and I am of the lion race. We have been great warriors in the past, but now reside in love and contentment. This is how we choose to live.
Do you live on a planet?
No, I live in my soul's energy and need no material home. Thank you, my friend. I am most pleased to work with you.
You too, dear soul.
Another thing that's quite unusual is that a lot of them come with human faces, but that's not necessarily what they look like. But so this fascinated me because I'm thinking, well, why do loads of them have human faces? So I asked the question and I said, why does most of my drawings come with human faces? And their answer was, because the human brain will accept it quicker than the way we look. So basically, they do something that's familiar, so your brain accepts it straight away, rather than do something maybe what they really look like, and you're thinking, oh, I don't like that, and you don't engage with it. And they're so clever. It is so clever, and it just makes sense to me.
Mhm. Wow.
It makes complete sense.
Have you ever channeled information that they might have given to you regarding the future of the planet?
There's lots of stuff about, excuse me, about the future. A lot of it's to do with nature and storms and stuff going on, because actually what we're doing is unbalancing the planet, you know, with all the stuff going on, and nature's fighting back, and there's going to be a lot of stuff going on.
You did a channel, I think. I'm not sure if it was during Alexis' interview, but he also talked about the current the pandemic, COVID, and things that people had to do to their bodies. I think you also said that the ETs knew about that, but everyone would be saved in the end. Do you remember that?
Yeah. I think everyone will be saved, but maybe there's people who've are just on the planet at the moment, and they're just where they are. And you know, when big catastrophes happen, like an earthquake, you can get thousands of people, and they're just So what it basically, as I read it, is that there'll be people saved who look beyond what is. We don't need a body to be saved. Our body's only our vehicle. We don't need that body. So it's like you are saved, but in a different way. There'll still be people on the earth, but it won't be the same. I think the future's got a lot of big things coming.
Yeah.
Not all particularly bad, but I think there's still a lot of rough rides coming. but then nature fights back.
Oh yeah. I've had people on board that would talk about the new Earth, but I think that's really far down the road. So we've still got a lot of work to do.
It's not going to happen overnight, but as things are now, I don't go into all the political stuff because you can get really hung up on it, and then you're in that shadow energy. But in order for things to be better, if you were building a new house, and in order to do that, you demolish the old one, and then you start off with your foundations and rebuild, and that's what's going to happen.
Okay.
Because lots of political leaders and all stuff like that, there's all sorts of stuff coming out now, which is not putting them in a good light, shall I say. But no. It's got to happen. It's not going to happen overnight. It'll take years.
All that is happening is to teach you to only listen to your own perspective and to honor your souls, as you're about to go on a complete turnaround and redeem your true self. Everyone who has been affected by the so-called virus is to be attuned to another dimension. All that is said is of great importance at this time. Do not be afraid, as all is not as you are led to believe. Always seek the strength that you can tap into and only listen to the things that affect you personally. Be aware, be vigilant, but don't fall in the foolish assumption that you will not be uplifted.
Have the abductions ever continued after those few years?
Not as far as I know, but I get loads of strange experiences. I've stuff this very often. I've stuff disappear, and then it's given back.
Okay. Naughty.
Do you have that?
Yeah.
Things disappear, and then like weeks and weeks later, they're in the most obvious place.
Let me see. Now, you've shared with me a few of your artwork. Now, I know some of them do like grays, because you've got a specific type of artwork. that looks a lot like native Indian-ish, but really adapted to the star people.
Yeah, a lot of people say that, and they'll say it's like a bit like Aborigine art. Yep. But when I draw, it starts with just a dot or a line, and I never know. Some of it comes upside down, some of it comes on its side. I don't know what it is sometimes till I turn my book round, and then the picture's there.
So are all of these drawn with your left hand?
No, I use my right hand mostly now, but that was like the introduction, how to completely leave a clear channel.
Okay.
I mean, I'll draw while I'm watching the TV program. I can draw while I'm in a conversation with somebody because it just comes in. Okay. I do readings in art where I connect to somebody's energy and they'll get a drawing, and then I can write down all what comes from the drawing.
Do you have any other stories that you might want to share, or perhaps a closing statement?
The only thing I can say as a closing statement is, just look after yourself and those around you who you love, your family and close ones. And one of the best things you can do is just keep healthy and look to the future. Let's visualize a future. We don't need to visualize the end of the earth. We don't need to visualize being overcome by ETs. What we need to do is live a day at a time and create, because we are what we create. And I think that's a very, very valid way to live. The thing is, there's so much stuff come on TV and news and that and everything's brought to bring us down. But if you're possibly strong enough, or you can see that happens, if you live above that dark shadow of everything on earth, you've only got to walk into nature and all of a sudden you're uplifted. You can walk along by the sea uplifts you. And that's a far better energy to be on than that wave of like bombing and war and people starving. Okay, we've got to be aware of it because we're living an earthly life. But what I'm saying is, don't let that part of it take your life over. Look for the things that make you feel healthy. Eat the foods that you feel is beneficial to your body. And do all the things, that brings love into your life. This is how we're supposed to live. And by doing that, then we create our own future. So basically, when they say everybody in life has choice, you do. And even if you're starving or you're on the floor because you malnutrition or whatever, there's still them things there. And if that does happen to you and you pass away because of it, it's because you came to experience that. And you've been called back. You've experienced that. When my first husband died, when I met him, we was only 17, and the first thing he ever said to me was, I won't live very long, I'll die young. And I used to say, don't be silly. But like when we got married, all he wanted was a wife and to have children, and then he died. So that really makes you see that he came down to experience that, be with somebody he loved and have children, and then he went. Sure. So like, we can't say what we, all that. We have to create our own life, to be basic. Okay. It is easy once you get in the pattern.
Well, if all you see is gloom and doom, then that's what you're going to attract. So,
well, this is when people, take their own life and horrible things happen because they can't get out of that energy. So every day, even if you do one thing, even if it's get your phone up and talk to a nice friend, or give your mother a hug, or whatever, they're the things we need to be doing.
Yeah, it's all the little things that really help.
Yeah, it is.
So Faye, thank you so much for coming on today. I'm looking forward to more of your drawings in the future. And you're a
I'll
lovely
stick it
person.
to- Thank you ever so much. It's been a pleasure to meet you and talk to you.
And to those who had the pleasure of watching today's interview, I hope you enjoyed it. I'm your host, Mr. Gray. More interviews coming up, and I'll see you guys next time. So take care, everyone. Hello, everyone. This is Mr. Gray, and thanks for watching today's episode. If you are an abductee, contactee, or experiencer, and you believe that your story could help others, please feel free to contact me through my YouTube channel email. When it comes to experiencers, the ET phenomena, and the future, remember, truth will out.